we have a very stacked fight night this weekend taking place in Doha, Qatar, with Arman Tsarukyan and Dan Hooker in the main event. You also got Belal Muhammad and Ian Garry in the co-main event. It's a solid fight night card, very solid. And today I'm going to be giving my predictions for every fight on the card. So as usual, we'll go down to the bottom here and kick things off with the prelim opener of Marek Bujlo versus Denzel Freeman. Now, as you can see, these two guys are locked characters on this screen because they have not fought in the UFC. They're both making their debut at heavyweight. And frankly, I'm not going to be going through regional scene footage of two heavyweights with 6 fights and 7 fights respectively. So we'll be flipping a coin on this one. Heads for Bujlo and tails for Denzel Freeman. Denzel Freeman it is. We'll go ahead and move on to the second fight on the card, Nurullo Aliev versus Shamrock. Now, I know Shamrock is a bit of a fan favorite. He trains at that gym that Paddy Pimblett's at in the UK in Liverpool. But unfortunately, I'm picking him against him in this one. I think Aliev, he's a tough matchup to begin with for a debut. I mean, this is a undefeated grappler. Dude looks just like Khabib. However, it's also a tough stylistic matchup. Nurullo Aliev has had success against grapplers. He does a good job at getting control and just mushing guys and winning. He has good ground and pound, good control with his wrestling. A lot of his fights go to a decision. Unfortunately for Shamrock, I think he's going to be outmatched in the wrestling here. I think Nurullo Aliev is going to be able to get him down, probably get to a body lock, drag him down, be able to control him and win a decision. Maybe Shamrock has some moments where he gets him in trouble on the ground because he does have good jiu-jitsu. He has good submissions. But yeah, I'm betting on Aliev here. I mean, another thing to consider here with this matchup is Shamrock in his last fight, he went to a split decision over a guy who's 15-9. Now I've heard people say it probably shouldn't have been scored to the other guy, but a competitive fight either way against a 15-9 opponent in your last fight, it's not the best sign going into a fight with 10-0 prospect Nurullo Aliev here. And Nurullo Aliev as well. He handled Joe Solecki really well, which isn't a great win by any means, but Joe Solecki's a good grappler in his own right. So I just think this is a tough stylistic matchup for Shamrock. I also think this is a little bit too much for his debut. I don't know. I would have liked to see him get an easier opponent, but here we are. So I'm going with Aliev to win the second fight on the card. Moving on, Ismail Nurdiev versus Ryan Loder. Now, Ryan Loder is Ultimate Fighter season 32 or 33 winner. He beat Robert Valentin, but as we know now, Valentin is not good at all. I know there was some hype around him during the show because he had a fun style, he's fun to watch and stuff. But I mean, that guy had no grappling whatsoever, no wrestling defense. We saw that in the Torres Finney fight, and he was out there against Ateba Gutierrez just to get chinned. I mean, he offered no resistance whatsoever. Which, losing to Ateba Gutierrez, there's not much shame in that right now, but it's the fact that he went out there and just kind of beckoned him on until he got chinned and didn't really throw much of anything himself. So that win for Ryan Loder in the tough finales doesn't really mean a whole lot. And then in his debut, I believe he got Azamat Bakov, where he got slept badly in round 1, like really bad. So I'm picking Nurdiev in this fight. I don't think Ismail Nurdiev is great. I think he's towards the lower level when it comes to middleweight. But he did have an impressive win over Bruno Silva in his re-entrance in the UFC in his second stint. He was on the regional scene for a little bit, got called back up. He took a fight with Bruno Silva and he won. It was pretty clear. It was a pretty clear decision win. Now, a win over Bruno Silva does not mean that much as well. That's current age Bruno Silva. This isn't Bruno Silva in his prime before he ran into Alex Pereira. So not the most impressive win in that right, but even round 1 against Jung Young Park, he still looked pretty good. I mean, he was looking sharp on the feet. He was coming up from welterweight in his earlier part of his career, so he's very quick for the middleweight division, and that showed against Jung Young Park. He was landing the better shots. He's outboxing Jung Young Park on the feet. He was tuning him up. Now, he didn't have a whole lot of power, but Jung Young Park's also got a crazy chin. I mean, he's able to endure a ton of shots. He's super durable, and Ryan Loder isn't. So I think the speed of Ismail Nurdiev is going to be big in this fight, and I think he's gonna get a round 1 KO. That's what I'll say. I think he's gonna be too fast for him. I also think he's a bit stocky. He's a bit of a wide built guy versus Ryan Loder, who you can see over here is a little bit more slender. So I think Ryan Loder's not going to have too much of an easy time getting him down. And if he can't, he's going to be stuck on the feet with Nurdiev, who's much faster and much better on the feet than him. And after that KO loss in his debut, I'm going to go with Nurdiev getting this one done as well by a round 1 KO. Moving on up the card. Now, I don't know why this is the third fight on the card. This should be on the main card, number 1, but it's also one of the best fights on the card, in my opinion, overall. Obviously, the little brother, or now older brother, sorry, of Ilia Topuria, Alexandre Topuria. He's kind of established himself as a prospect in the UFC in his own right. But Beksat Almakhan, he is really, really good, and he's really dangerous. Flatline KO'd Brad Katona in his last fight, and that's not something you see often at 135. I mean, these guys don't typically have one-hit power to knock someone out like that, but he does. He also shut Umar Nurmagomedov's lights off in his debut. I don't know if it was short notice or not. I don't think it was. No, it wasn't, because I remember seeing the fight get booked at like a month and a half in advance of it happening, and I was really confused. Beksat Almakhan was Umar Nurmagomedov's fight before getting the fight with Corey Sandhagen. So getting a guy in his debut who also looks a bit smaller, but he packs a crazy punch. Either way, it was weird matchmaking for Umar. So I thought it was a complete mismatch. But Beksat Almakhan, he put him out in round 1. And if Umar Nurmagomedov didn't have the recovery that he did, like we saw on display in his fight with Umar Nurmagomedov, or no, not Umar, he did not fight himself, in his fight with Mario Bautista, where he ate that like shin to the face while going down for a takedown, and he was like switched off for a second but recovered. If Umar didn't have that recovery that he has, I think Beksat would have put him out, because he went like just stiff for a second. It was falling face first, and he ended up recovering, getting to the hips, getting a takedown, and he spent the rest of that fight just trying to control Almakhan, and that's what he did. Now, Almakhan did a good job at surviving bad positions on the ground, staying out of danger. He did end up losing decision, but I think he took round 1 of that fight against Umar from dropping him really, really bad. I would say it's the most danger we've seen Umar be put in at any point in his career. Now, I know he lost to Merab, but he didn't get finished, and he wasn't in any danger of getting finished. In that fight, he was truly like out for a second, but he recovered. So now, moving on to Alexander Topuria, the other side of this fight. We know what we're getting with Beksat Almakhan, crazy power. After his debut win against Colby Thickness, I was impressed, and I was like, all right, we might have a bit of a star on our hands. He fights just like Topuria, minus the power. He has that same really good like rip and dip boxing. He's also got really good grappling. He's great at picking guys up and slamming them. But my problem with Alexander Topuria is that fight with Colby Thickness, and how it was somewhat competitive, and Thickness started to kind of gain some momentum late in that fight. Because if you saw Colby Thickness's last fight against Josias Musasa, that fight was awful. And Josias Musasa is terrible. Musasa is very, very bad. He's the guy that got like head kicked and KO'd by some like jiu-jitsu guy and then subbed right after. It was complete domination. I think his name's like Vera. But yeah, Musasa was the guy who lost in that fashion, and then Colby Thickness took him to a really close decision. So I don't like that performance in hindsight from Topuria. I think Beksat Almakhan would have put Colby Thickness out in round 1. So that worries me a bit. He's also pretty inexperienced, only 7 fights. I know Beksat only has 14, but we're talking about double the experience as a pro fighter. Yeah, I don't know. I'm worried. The thing I worry about most for Beksat here is the grappling of Topuria. He's got a very good grappling base. We saw how good his takedowns were against Thickness. But I don't think he has the control and the ability to dominate on the ground like Umar Nurmagomedov does. So if Beksat can avoid getting controlled for the whole fight, and I don't think he'll get subbed, but if he could avoid getting controlled, I think if this stays on the feet enough, I think he's going to find the knockout shot on Topuria. I do think Topuria is really good, but I also think Almakhan's really good. I hate seeing these guys matched up so soon in their careers, because I think they could have gone far. I think they both could be guys that are at least on the fringe of that top 15. So it's a bit weird seeing them fight this earlier in their career, but here we are. I'm going to pick Almakhan, though, getting this one done. And I'll say round 1 KO. I know that sounds like, there's a huge skill difference between the two, but they're not. They're both incredibly talented fighters. I just think Almakhan's got that crazy power, and if he's able to find a shot to put down Umar Nurmagomedov, I think he can find it on Topuria as well. So we will move on up the card. Not even going to bother pronouncing it. It's the guy from Dana White's Contender Series. A couple months ago, I think he got like a 30-second KO real quick. it says he's Russian. I thought he was Turkish. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh well. Either way, I don't know a whole lot about him. There wasn't much to learn from his Dana White Contender Series fight, other than the fact that he did get a 30-second knockout. So we know he's got bombs in his hands. Rafael Caquera, he does not do well against guys that have great power. In most of his fights, well, he's lost all three of his fights in the UFC. Frankly, I'm not sure how he's still around. He's kind of like, I think of him like a light heavyweight Anton Tricoli, where I'm not quite sure how he's still in the UFC because he just kind of goes out there and is a punching bag. But yeah, in his first two fights, he got walked down and like standing TKO'd against Ibo Aslan within like a minute. And then his second fight, he got hit by a big shot in round one against Modestas Bukauskas, completely covered up, was just eating punishment, and then got slept out cold. So anytime this guy faces any sort of adversity where he gets hurt, he seems to just shell up against the cage and accept getting finished. So I'm going to take the guy that has a 30-second knockout in his last fight to go out there and knock out Caquera. I think he's going to get it done in round one. Again, I don't know a whole lot about him, but I do know enough about Rafael Caquera to say anyone against power, anyone with him at power, with power at light heavyweight is a problem for him. He did make it the distance against Julius Walker, but he also lost that fight, and I don't think Julius Walker's all that good. So, yeah, I don't know. I got to go with the undefeated, powerful Yakyayev there against Rafael Caquera. Moving on up the card. Alex Perez versus Asul Almabayev. Asul Almabayev, I think his last fight was against Jose Ochoa, I believe, who I think is really good. I think he's a really good flyweight, and he pretty much neutralized him. He was able to get takedowns out in the open, get some control time. I don't know if he threatened any submissions in that fight, but his grappling looked really good against Jose Ochoa, and he held his own on the feet too. That's something else to consider. It wasn't just he was grappling for his life. He was doing well on the stand-up as well against a really powerful and really good fighter in Jose Ochoa. So yeah, I'm liking Asul Almabayev in this fight. Alex Perez, I think back to his fight with Muhammad Makayev, in which he was getting the grappling put on him, obviously, and he kind of just became inactive. And even Makayev, who was pretty much won that fight by failing takedowns, he was just shooting for the hips, not getting it, laying on his knees, and Perez was just doing nothing, and he ended up losing the decision in a fight where he could have easily won if he was just a little bit more active. So I feel like when faced with grapplers who will shoot out in the open, like Makayev, like Almabayev in this fight, he kind of gets a bit stationary and he doesn't really throw a whole lot. So I worry about that with Perez here. I don't think he's gonna be active enough to go out there and do enough to go out there and beat Asul Almabayev. And also, I don't think he has that knockout win over Mateusz Nicolau, which is really nice, but I don't think he has the power on the back foot to get like a flash knockout and put Asul Almabayev out. And Asul's got a good chin too. He's taken some big shots. I mean, he got caught a little bit against Jose Ochoa, not put in any danger, but he ate some big shots and he was able to tank those. And Jose Ochoa is one of the most powerful guys at flyweight. So yeah, I got Almabayev winning this one. I think he becomes a little bit too inactive when he's faced up against a grappler like Almabayev. I also think Almabayev, there's a chance that he outstrikes him. Perez is a bit dangerous on the feet, like I mentioned. He has knockouts in his career. But yeah, I think Almabayev's chin's good enough. I think he's good enough on the feet. He's defensively sound enough on the feet to hang with him there. And I think he'll just out-grapple him. I think he'll, just get some takedowns, get some control time in there, keep it competitive on the feet, and win a 29-28 decision. So, moving on, Nicholas Dalby versus another name I'm not going to try and pronounce. This is a guy that's coming over from ONE FC, who has a pretty solid career. I feel like I should be picking him. I haven't watched him fight. I've watched a lot of Nicholas Dalby fights, obviously, but I feel like I should be picking this guy. I also checked, and he is a big favorite. Not a big favorite, but like 2-1. He's like minus 220 or something like that. So yeah, he's a sizable favorite over Nicholas Dalby. But I think they could be overlooking Nicholas Dalby a little bit. I mean, that win over Gabriel Bonfim's aging really well, and he completely broke Gabriel Bonfim, finished him with a knee up the middle, put him out bad. Nicholas Dalby's a guy who, and Randy Brown, I think he's a really bad matchup for Nicholas Dalby, and I think that's why that fight ended the way it did. But Nicholas Dalby is able to endure so much. I know we'll see how that's changed after the knockout to Randy Brown, but I don't know. I don't think it's gonna see that much of a drastic difference where he's gonna get shut off by one punch or anything like that. I think Nicholas Dalby, very durable, very good. He's very well rounded. He's got solid grappling. He's got good boxing. Not the best, but it's a little bit sloppy. But he's got good boxing. He's got really good pressure. His cardio is incredible. And yeah, he's going up against a guy who hasn't fought since 2022 as well. I'll go ahead and I'll take a stab at it. Izaga Kamaev, whatever it is. Yeah, he hasn't fought since 2022. A lot of inactivity, and I don't think that's for him to blame. I mean, you look at the Reiner de Ritter situation where he was over in ONE FC as well and just couldn't get a fight for a long time, so they ended up parting ways with him. He went to the UFC, and yeah, it's been history since then. So the 2 years of inactivity, I do worry about a little bit. I'm sure he's been staying active in the gym, so it's not too much of a concern, but it is something to make note of. And your locked character over on the right, he does not, or he has a bit of a frame advantage as well. He's a bigger guy. Doesn't have any reach, but he has a couple inches in height. But I was looking through his record, and there's a couple things that stood out to me. He had a couple losses in his career. One of them was to Carlston Harris, though, and he got subbed. And this guy is a grappler. I was looking at his record, a lot of subs on his record. He's coming off a really nasty knockout win a few years back, but it was against a guy who's way old and out of his prime in Shinya Aoki. It's an impressive name to have on his resume, but again, it's a guy who's way out of his prime, completely old. So not too much stock goes into that, but he does have good grappling. So to see on your record that you got subbed by Carlston Harris isn't the best look, because I think Dalby in the welterweight division right now is a step above Carlston Harris. So I'll pick Isaac Kamaev to win the first round, and then I think Dalby, as the fight goes on, he'll just start to take over. I think he'll start to pressure him quite a bit, and I'm going to pick him to win a 29-28 decision. Moving on. Up the card, Bogdan Grad versus Luke Riley, another locked character. Luke Riley, he's a pretty exciting prospect. Another guy, like I mentioned earlier, that's out of that gym in the UK that Paddy trains at. So a lot of representation for that gym on this card. He's good. Luke Riley's a really good striker, undefeated. He's got decent power in his hands. He's really quick. When he gets someone hurt, he's really swarming against the cage. I mean, he throws 10 punch combinations, just winging big shots. Not winging big shots. He keeps his shots pretty tight and strong. But yeah, when he gets you hurt, or when he just starts to get that momentum and put the pressure on you, he'll it'll go downhill so fast, and he'll just land shot after shot after shot. Bogdan Grad, he's solid, not great. He's all right. Yeah, he's a good grappler. He's got that going for him. He had a competitive fight with Muhammad Naimov. I think he lost that fight, and it wasn't too close, but he kept it competitive, and he was able to hang in the grappling with Naimov, have a little bit of success of his own. And yeah, I think he's a solid grappler, but I don't think that's where this fight is going to be taking place. I think it's going to be on the feet. I think Luke Riley is going to have a lot of success there. He's also has had plenty. A lot of times you see with like undefeated prospects, they'll won't have a whole lot of experience going deep into fights. Luke Riley's had a lot of fights where he's gone into the third round, where he's been tested, where it's gone to a decision, and he's been tested late, and his cardio's held up well, and he's able to keep that pressure consistent throughout all of his fights. So I think Luke Riley's going to get this one done. I think he's going to build into this fight, eventually get a late finish. I think he's going to win by KO. Also something to note, Bogdan Grad, I don't know if it was the last time he fought a striker, but was a couple years ago against Tom Nolan. Fought Tom Nolan. He got put out bad in round one. So his chin's been tested before, and it didn't hold up. So I think Luke Riley, he's going to build into this fight. I think he may find some adversity a little bit in the grappling in some moments, but I think he'll be able to keep it standing for most of this fight and get a late finish. So we'll move on to the main card. Tagir Ulanbekov versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Horiguchi's a legend. He's a legend of the sport. Been around for a really long time. Fought Demetrius Johnson for the belt in the UFC forever ago, and then he ended up in ONE FC for a long time. When I was looking into this fight a little bit, I was thinking Horiguchi would be like 40, and he would be considerably older than Tagir Ulanbekov, but he is only a year older. Ulanbekov, he's 34 himself. Horiguchi's only 35. So I guess he was fighting against DJ for the belt at 25 years old, which I know the flyweight division was pretty barren back then, but still something to make note of. It's pretty impressive. He's also, I know I'm a little bit skeptical of picking guys who are coming over to their from other promotions and taking on a top, not a top opponent, but someone in or right around the rankings in their first fight. That's always kind of a tough situation to go into. Um, but Horiguchi, he's been tested. He's fought a lot of really good guys in his career. He beat Sergio Pettis. He beat Kaya Sakura. He beat Manel Cap. He subbed Manel Cap as well. He's got some really, really impressive wins on his resume. He's really well rounded as well. He's got good striking. There's a lot of knockouts on his record. He's got good submissions. He's a very seasoned, experienced, and well rounded fighter. I think he's good. And Tagir Ulanbekov, he does have a pretty big frame advantage. Horiguchi's only 5'4". Ulanbekov only has an inch in reach, though. It's something to make note of. So, it's not like he's got crazy reach advantage like Charles Johnson, Logan Kavanaugh, or something. It's a pretty even when it comes to reach. And yeah, I mean, you could also see something I just thought of too, looking at Horiguchi's shorts over there. That shows you how long he's been in the game for. So I don't know. This is a tough one for me. I don't think Tagir Ulanbekov's that good, especially his last fight was a win over Azat Maxim, and that win hasn't aged well considering Azat Maxim lost to Mitch Raposo. And I think Maxim's loss to Mitch Raposo was more convincing than Tagir Ulanbekov. I think Raposo had a better time against Azat Maxim than Tagir Ulanbekov did. So that worries me quite a bit because I didn't think Raposo was even UFC level. So Ulanbekov's weird. He's got some impressive wins, but he also has some really down performances. He's a good grappler. He's got good submission potential. He's also got really good control. He's good at getting to standing positions where he's on your back, or he's able to get to the body lock and drag you down. You can see how long his frame is, so that works well in those situations where he's against the cage trying to get takedowns. This is the 50-50 one for me. I'm really torn. I don't know. I don't rate Tagir Ulanbekov that much, but there's some nights where he shows up and looks really good, some nights where he doesn't. I think I'm going to trust Kyoji Horiguchi in the experience he has. I've been flip-flopping all day thinking about who I'm going to pick with this fight, but I'm just going to settle on Horiguchi and hope for the best. He's been in there with a lot of great fighters. He's well-rounded. I think he's better on the feet than Tagir. And I think he has the experience with enough top-level fighters that he'll hang in there with the grappling. Don't think he'll get submitted. I think this fight will go to a decision, and I think it'll be really close, which, considering the location, they are going to Qatar. That is something to consider with Ulanbekov. I think if it goes to the scorecards, there could be a little bit of favoritism, just a little bit. But I'm going to go with Horiguchi, and I'm not going to dwell on it anymore. I'm just going to go with it and move on. Kyoji Horiguchi, 29-28 decision. We'll move on to Sergey Spivak versus Shamil the Blob Gaziev. I'm going to go with Sergey Spivak winning this one. I do worry about the power of Gaziev. I worry about that early. But I think as this fight goes on, I think as we build into it, I think it's going to favor Spivak more and more. Spivak's also not quite as fat as Gaziev. Something to make note of. He's kind of at that level of UFC fighters or UFC heavyweights where he's right at the bottom of the top 10, and he's not a complete fat blob. So yeah, Sergey Spivak. He also had that impressive submission off bottom position against Marcin Tybura, where he's able to throw up an armbar and get it in round one against Tybura. So he's not completely incapable on the ground. So if this fight does go down there, I think he'll be fine down there. I think he'll be comfortable. And on the feet, like I said, I do worry about the power early of Shamil Gaziev, but I think as this fight goes on, we've seen him tire out. We've seen him have competitive fights with really low levels of competition. Gaziev had a really close fight with Dontel Mays that went to a decision. And Sergey Spivak, I think if he can survive that first round, I think he's going to build into it. I think he's going to have a lot of success with the low kicks. Gaziev's going to have a hard time standing on all that weight and taking a bunch of low kicks in this fight. So once those start adding up, it'll hamper his movement quite a bit. And I think Spivak will be able to get him backed up. And yeah, it's I look at who these guys have had competitive fights with, and Spivak, he's coming off a competitive fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta. Gaziev had a competitive fight with Dontel Mays. That's just immense levels between those two fighters. So I'm going to pick Spivak here. I think Gaziev could get an early finish, but I don't know. I think Spivak, he's been in there with a lot of high level strikers at heavyweight. I know Gon isn't the biggest power puncher, but he went like a round and a half with him. So if he can do that, I think he can get out of round one against Shamil Gaziev. I would hope at least. And yeah, I think as this fight goes on, I think the low kicks will add up for him if he chooses to take advantage of that. I think he'll be on the front foot, pressuring Shamil Gaziev. I think he'll be landing more. And yeah, I'm gonna pick Spivak to win. Maybe he loses the first round, wins the last two, but I'm picking him to win a decision. And we will move on. Jack Hermansson versus Miktabek Orbai. What a weird fight this is. When I saw this get announced, I was very confused. But Hermansson moving down to 170, Miktabek Orbai moving up to 170. Formerly a 30-pound weight differential between the two in their old weight classes, but the frame isn't too different. I mean, Hermansson, he's a big dude. He's got long arms. He's pretty lanky, but he's only a few inches taller than Orbai, and he's not got a ton of reach. He has a 3.5 inch reach advantage, but I mean, we've seen other fights where it's a crazier difference. So I don't think it's some obstacle that's impossible for Orbai to overcome. I think he'll be all right. And we've seen in his debut, which I think to this day is probably his most impressive fight against Uros Medic. He dealt with a lanky welterweight really well. He took him down, subbed him. I think it was in round one, might have been in round two, but either way, he dominated that fight. It was a clear win for Orbai, just one-way traffic the whole way. Dominated in the grappling, did well in the stand-up as well. And Hermansson also coming off that devastating knockout loss to Gregor Rodriguez. So that combined with him going down 15 pounds to a lower weight class, I think that's risky. I think that's not good for his ability to take shots. So I do worry about that quite a bit. I don't think Orbai is going to put him out. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. But maybe there's moments in this fight where he hurts him, and Hermansson goes a little wobbly. I don't like going down a weight class 15 pounds below after getting knocked out cold. It's a risky play, I think. But when it comes to this style matchup, I do worry about Hermansson's kind of trickiness on the ground and his ability to scramble on the ground and find submissions during those scrambles. I worry about that against Orbai, who will be smaller than him. I worry about Hermansson possibly being able to manipulate Orbai when they're scrambling on the ground. But Orlbai's a really good grappler himself. He's got good control. He's got good submissions. He's had competitive striking matchups with really good lightweights. So this is, I think, the ultimate example of lighter man skill. We'll see this truly put to the test. Formerly a 30-pound differential between the two. I know Orlbai wasn't really a lightweight because he had his best fight in his debut at 170, and then I think he had one more at 55, then he missed a weight. So he was never going to fight at 155 again after his last fight. But yeah, it's a strange one. Former lightweight versus former middleweight. We'll see. I'm going to go with Miktabek Orbai, though, getting this one done by decision. I think he'll have more control time. I think that weight cut for Hermansson is going to affect him a lot more than he thinks it will, because he's not a small middleweight. He's a pretty average-sized middleweight, I would say. So that's going to be a really, really hard weight cut. And yeah, I'm going to go Orbai by decision, although I do worry about some danger on the ground. So we'll see. Moving on, Volkan Oezdemir versus Alonzo Menifield. I got Oezdemir winning this one. This is a couple guys who both have a lot of power and both have pretty suspect chins. The difference is, I think Oezdemir's decision-making is a lot better. Menifield tends to make really poor decisions in his fight. Think back to that Carlos Ulberg fight where he blitzed in the first 10 seconds and got slept out cold. There's been so many examples of poor decision-making throughout his career. So I think he makes the smarter calls on the feet. He makes good reads. And I just think he'll be, adjusting better than Menifield will as the fight goes on. I also think Oezdemir, he's a much better boxer. And I was looking at, fights where Alonzo Menifield had success. The Umar Sy performance, it was impressive because Sy is he was an up-and-coming prospect. He was a pretty big favorite going into that fight, and Menifield dealt with him well. Another fight where Menifield had some success was against Jimmy Crute, which both those guys are grapplers. Oezdemir's not going to grapple with him. He's a striker. This is going to be a striker-on-striker matchup. And I think when Menifield's paired with pure strikers, I don't think he does as well on the feet as he does when he's going up against grapplers. And yeah, I think Oezdemir, he's a much better boxer. I think he's going to make less poor decisions. I also think he's been proven against higher levels of competition. I mean, he had a really close fight with Carlos Ulberg. He put away Johnny Walker bad, and I don't know if that was his last fight. I think it may have been for Uzdemir. He also had that win over Bogdan Guskov, which I know was Guskov's debut, so not a whole lot goes into that one stock-wise, but still an impressive win. It's aged really well. So I'm going to take Volkan Uzdemir, and I think he's going to get it done by round 1 KO. I think Menifield's going to get a little wild, get a little scrappy. And, speaking of that Johnny Walker fight, we've seen how Uzdemir deals with guys who get a little bit wild. He puts them out bad. So give me Volkan Uzdemir, round 1 KO. I think he finds a shot, puts Menifield down, and gets an early win. Gets a fight or performance of the night bonus as well, I'm sure. Moving on to the co-main event. This is where it gets good. Last 2 fights on this card. Belal Muhammad versus Ian Garry. I'm going to go with Ian Garry. And I was a little bit up in the air over the last, I don't know, month or two since this fight's gotten announced. However, I think last weekend's card really solidified the decision with me, seeing how Islam was able to get JDM down and control him pretty much effortlessly. That had a big impact on how I was going to pick this fight, because Belal had virtually no success in the grappling, except for a minute in round 5 maybe. He had no success in getting JDM down and controlling him. And then Islam moves up and does it with ease. So that worries me a little bit about Belal's grappling. And, in fights where he isn't able to get the grappling going, who has he beat that impressively? I think the Gilbert Burns fight where he beat a one-armed Gilbert Burns by a decision that wasn't very impressive. His boxing looked dog shit in that fight as well. Wasn't anything to write home about. I think this is going to be tough for him. I think Ian Garry also got that big frame advantage. I know he doesn't have the longest reach, but he's got a huge height advantage, so he's going to be hard for Belal to get up there and hit. He's also got pretty long legs, and he uses his kicks really well to maintain distance. He's really good at circling out as well, something else to make note of. And he's got good takedown defense. This is a really bad matchup for Belal when I look at it more and more. He's going up against a guy who's got a huge frame advantage, who's good at fighting on the back foot, who uses his kicks well to maintain distance, who circles out really well. This dude, he survived with 5 rounds of Carlos Prates hunting him down, being on the front foot. And he got some grappling off of his own. He looked really good in that fight. And a lot of Ian Garry's wins in the past are aging better and better. I mean, the MVP win, that's aging well. Carlos Prates win, that's aging well. Daniel Rodriguez, that win's aging well. Even though, I don't know, maybe he's in prison right now. That's what I've heard. I'm just throwing it out there. But still, Daniel Rodriguez coming off a big win over Kevin Holland, so that win has aged well. And he had a competitive fight with Shavkat, who I think is a lot more physically imposing than Belal Muhammad. And I think Shavkat, he gets his takedowns in a way where he's able to capitalize a little bit on lankier opponents. He gets you backed up against the fence, and he works from the clinch to get you down, and he works with throws. He has that judo background, so Belal, he'll just shoot straight for the hips, and I think he's going to have a hard time getting those off on Ian Garry. And I think Ian Garry's just going to pepper him on the back foot. I think he's going to land a lot of teep kicks to Belal. I think that's going to wear him as the fight goes on. I think he's going to get his face all busted up like he did in the JDM fight. Ian Garry's going to be peppering him on the back foot throughout this fight. I think this is a really, really bad matchup for Belal. I think it's going to look a little bit like when he was on the front foot against Jack Della Maddalena, and he was just getting pinged around. And I think he's going to start to get desperate as the fight goes on, and it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. I don't think Gary's going to get a finish. I'm not going to really bet on Ian Garry to get a finish. I believe this is a 5-round fight. I've seen some people have said it's 3 rounds, some have said it's 5. I wish the UFC would be more clear about that, but yeah, even if it's a 5-rounder, I don't think that's too much of a problem for Ian Garry, because he's shown that he has good cardio and he can handle 5-round fights before. So give me Ian Garry, completely outstriking his Belal on his way to I'll say 49-46 decision. And yeah, man, I'm starting to rethink everything I've known. So especially with Jack Della Maddalena, my guy, hurts me to say that, but I don't know. Maybe Ian Garry's just really good. And I think that is true. I do think Ian Garry's a really, really good fighter, which I hate to say because I'm rooting for Belal in this one. And I don't like Belal, so that says something. I really, really hate Ian Garry, but I got to give props where it's due. He's a hell of a fighter. So we'll move on to the main event. Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker. Another fight. This one I haven't had a lot of back and forth on. I've been Arman Tsarukyan all the way. I think 99% of people are. Dan Hooker, maybe there's a chance that he makes a scrappy, turns this into a brawl, and he's able to put away Arman Tsarukyan, but that's such an unlikely scenario that you can't really count on. That's pretty much the only scenario that you can see him winning this. And even then, Arman Tsarukyan, he's really good on the feet. He's a really solid striker. Charles Oliveira is so dangerous on the feet, and he pretty much controlled the striking against Oliveira. He had Oliveira on the back foot, and I know that was because Oliveira was worried about the takedown. But that he presents that same threat against Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's going to have to worry about the takedown, and that opens up a lot of opportunities for Tsarukyan on the feet. And I think he's good there. He had that crazy axe kick on Charles Oliveira. He's got really good striking. He's really powerful as well. I know Dariush's his chin is evaporated, but he's got really good power. He's really muscular and bulky for the division, so he's able to generate a lot of power on those tight hooks that he lands. And I think the big difference maker in this fight for me between these two is how good Arman Tsarukyan's top control and his ground and pound is. I think when he ultimately does get Dan Hooker down to the ground in this fight, his top control is elite. I don't think he's going to let Dan Hooker get up very easily, and I think he's going to land some really big ground and pound shots. Something else to note, I don't think we've seen him fight since 12-6 elbows have been allowed back in the UFC. So that's something I think is going to work for him really well. I think he's going to land a lot of those 12-6 elbows. I think he's going to beat the shit out of Dan Hooker on the ground. And I'm picking him to get an early finish. I think Dan Hooker's a little too tough for his own good, so I think he'll survive maybe a round or two, and I'll say late round 2, early round 3 finish for Arman Tsarukyan. I think it'll be a ground and pound TKO. Maybe he finds a sub on Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's been subbed on the ground before, but I think he'll be working to avoid that a lot in this fight, and I think that'll leave openings for Arman Tsarukyan to land big ground and pound. His fight against Joaquim Silva, absolutely, he got hurt, and then after that, he got him down and beat the shit out of him on the ground. Against Charles Oliveira, that was, I think, the big difference maker in that fight. That's what won him that fight, because he was able to get him down and land big ground and pound shots, and that just meant more to the judges than Charles Oliveira's submission attempts. So, yeah, this is a guy who has really deadly ground and pound, and I think he's gonna capitalize on Dan Hooker's frame as well. I think, Dan Hooker's a really lanky dude. Arman Tsarukyan's a really bulky dude, like I was mentioning earlier. So I think once he is able to get him down, it's going to be hard for Hooker to get back up. And I think those ground and pound shots are going to add up, and I think it's going to lead to a round 2 or 3 TKO finish for Arman Tsarukyan. And I think he will get that shot against Ilya in January. He was mentioning in an interview during this fight week that he wants to fight in January against Ilya. He wants to stay active. So I think he's going to be a little bit more motivated as well to go out there and get an early finish. And that lines up perfectly for my matchmaking video where I said, get Arman Tsarukyan to take a quick turnaround against Ilya in January. Pray for Ilya to get a quick a title defense against Arman. And then you can set up Islam versus Ilya in the White House for a triple champ status, ton of legacy on the line, the whole deal. So, yeah, that's my prediction for this fight and for the rest of the card. That's all I got for you guys today. If you watched this far, thank you so much for tuning in. A like and subscribe would be appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.